Hey, just a heads up that the following content may be disturbing or triggering for some listeners and is not appropriate for children. Please take care of yourself and others who may be listening with you. Welcome to the Bonus Babies Podcast, a show that has no easy answers, only hard questions.
We do 24-hour challenges, and it's a community of Navy SEALs mentoring foster youth that age out of the system. So it's 18 and older, former foster youth are 18 and older. And there's a number of SEAL team guys that kind of lead the way and have developed a program where it's a series of evolutions. Evolutions being, you're hiking and then there's some training. And what people don't realize is that Navy SEALs, it's not all just logs and crawling through sand and all that sort of thing. And there's classroom. And I didn't know that either. But that's these Chuck and Leif and Rob and John and these guys, this is what they went through. And it's funny, they illuminate the greatest benefits of what they learned in the SEAL teams that's relatable to these foster youth. So what we do is this 24-hour challenge. It's a 24-hour period of time. We don't sleep. There are dorms down here for Friday night, but not for Saturday night. And it's funny, people go, so where do we sleep? We don't sleep. That's the whole point. Because the thing is that it's funny, they say, the last 6 hours is where the magic happens. There's a level of exhaustion, but it's not just exhaustion. This is a completion exercise. It's not a beat down or any kind of a, extreme pressure or any of those sorts of things.
Can you tell me what you call the kids who you've cared for over the years?
We feel that the children that we receive coming into our home are bonuses. So we call them bonus babies.
I love that. This is your host, Jane Amelia Larson, and I'm a CASA, a court-appointed special advocate volunteer for youth in foster care. Yeah, I know it's a mouthful. In the same way a CASA works, I explore all things in the foster care maze by talking to kids, parents, caregivers, attorneys, social workers, therapists, really anybody and everybody who will speak to me to keep the conversation open and the information flowing about all things CASA.
Hi there, this is Jake Eberly, the producer of the Bonus Babies Podcast, and today Jane Amelia speaks with Greg Brake. Greg is the executive director of Foster Warriors, which is centered on empowering foster youth who have aged out of the system through the mentorship and coaching provided by former Navy SEALs and their allies. He's also built legal and technology teams, global litigation systems, cybersecurity companies, and more. And that's just a fraction. This is Greg Brake.
Hey, I'm here with Greg Brake, and it's been hard to get you on, but there you are. How you doing?
It's great to be here, Jane.
Oh, good. And I know you were driving a lot and then driving again and then driving some more. So where are you now?
I'm in Wrightsville, California. I don't know, some number of thousands of feet elevation, and just finished touring a potential location for our next 24-hour challenge.
Before we get into that, because I want to hear all about that, will you tell me a little bit about who you are? How were you raised? What about your family of origin?
Yes, I'm one of 5 children. The first 3 were 11 months apart. So my sister, then me, then my little brother Rick, and then twins. So my parents, they kind of wanted to delay, and then God gave them 2 at the same time. My father was career CIA, and my mother was a stay-at-home mom. And she had apparently worked for the company before they got married. And but so we traveled a little bit. I was born in Brazil. We lived in England. Spent time in America, then back over to England, then back. And so I just grew up in I call it like a Leave It to Beaver household. All the things you want to see, and I think my parents did their very best to raise us. And I was probably a little more challenging than my siblings. And so we, I felt loved, I didn't always feel loved. I ran away when I was 13. One time it was actually my brother's birthday. And I looked at the clock and I said,
Right. Do you remember why you ran away?
Because nobody was talking to me.
Oh, ouch.
I actually at that moment, I was a little ultra sensitive, and I felt like people didn't love me for some reason. And it was my brother's birthday, and everybody was in the kitchen. And I remember looking at the clock, and I was like, everybody was focused on my brother. Of course, it was his birthday. And I look at it now, but back then I just looked at the clock and it's like, if nobody talks to me in 15 minutes, I'm running away. And that's what I did. And so I called my buddy Zui, a guy from Vietnam that we had kind of adopted. And we were going to go to New York, and the Greyhound was closed. So we were going to get a motel. We had $100. I had $100. We were going to get a one-night motel, and the guy looked at us and said, "You're not staying here." So went back to his house where he was staying with his sister because he had escaped from Vietnam and being raised by his sister. So she wouldn't let me in the house. So he gave me a sleeping bag, and I slept out in the alley and in the tall grass, and I kind of hid behind the tall grass. And I just remember in the next morning, all the cars going to work, and they almost run by me. Just, bundled up in the sleeping bag. And so I just left it inside the yard and walked home. Then I called my mom, and she's like, "Where were you?"
Right. So were they looking for you?
No.
Or did they know you were just acting out, or was it just like?
I don't think so. I mean, back then we would go out and play and just go play. And we came home for dinner every night. It wasn't like we were just allowed to go sleep out in the alley, but I don't know. Maybe back then it was like, just don't say anything. And I don't know, but I never was questioned as to where I went or anything like that.
So when we talked the first time, you talked a little bit about how, that your family might seem one way, but you also experienced a certain amount of trauma that was maybe not obvious to other people, right?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a neighborhood. I was the oldest boy. And so my next door neighbor was the Kemps, and they had like 13 kids, and the Mooses had 12 or 11 kids, and they all had older brothers. And so, they always, just picked on me or whatever, threw my basketball down the hill, and I didn't have a big brother. So I had to essentially fight my way through whatever it is what I wanted to do. And so we just grew up in a neighborhood where bullying was just part of the thing, and I had a buddy, Lars. He and I both were the oldest. Didn't have older brothers, but everybody else who we knew had older brothers, like legions of them. But so I grew up in one of those neighborhoods, and so I remember one time I went over to visit my friend Lars, and the Hartmans were beating up on him. There were 3 or 4 brothers, and they were all beating up on Lars. So I just ran into the pile and just started swinging, and we were like 11, and his mother opened the door. We ran in the house. And they were running around the house saying, "We're going to beat you," on the way home, because I had to cut through an alley to go home. And I was scared to death. But, that was just part of being a kid, I think. But at the time, it was pretty harrowing. And but Lars walked with me through the alley, and I got home that night without having to fight again. But that was just pretty common, for us. But I guess one of the stories I was telling you, we were talking about, why foster warriors and how foster youth are conditioned for 2 things: not to trust anybody and not to expect to experience unconditional love. The reason why I bring that up is it's so important, because I did not feel like my parents loved me unconditionally until this one particular day. And we were living on base in England, and I had in my home, we took home ec back then. So I learned how to make onion rings. And my dad loved onion rings. So I was like, I'm going to make onion rings. We had 3 choices or something. So anyway, so I came home and I put the oil in these 2 pans. And I vaguely remember reading that if the oil bubbles, turn it off immediately because it's going to catch on fire. And it was back in my memory. And then, of course, when I had the fire burning and I'm cutting the onions and getting everything ready, I should have done it last. But anyway, so the pans caught on fire. So I had a grease fire in the kitchen. Burned the kitchen down, black smoke everywhere, and all the lights
burned. The kitchen down?
Yeah, well,
Oh my!
The flames came up into the cabinets, caught the cabinets on fire, singed the curtains, and all the fluorescent lighting all bent, melted onto the floor. It was pretty hot in the kitchen. Anyhow, so luckily it was a pocket door by the, shielding the front door. So when you walked in the front door, it looked like nothing had happened. But then you open that sliding door, and it's pitch black. So anyway, so I wrote a note on the door, and I said, "Mom, I'm okay, but just I need some time alone." So anyway, so she came home with my siblings, and they had gone out to the store or something, and the entire base was looking for me. Like, I don't say 50 kids, every household with kids. My mom called everybody and told their kids to go find me. She wanted to see if I was alive. Anyway, so I was hiding in a big slide up at the top of the hill, and I came home, and they promised me my mom wasn't gonna. But anyway, so I get home, and my mom was so happy to see me. My dad came home from work. He was furious. So what's important is that, a neighbor two streets up, the daughter had done something where she was kicked out of the family, disowned, and she had done something against the family. So anyway, her brother was over spending the night, and you know how when you have a sleepover, it's like a big deal. And he was my age, but he was playing with my little brother because I had to clean the kitchen. And so it's like, we talk about the 24-hour challenge and what happens in the middle of the night. So it's like 1 or 2 in the morning, and I'm still cleaning the kitchen. I'm exhausted, and I wrote "help" on the ceiling. I just remember playing around, but I was exhausted, and my dad came in the kitchen, and he was still mad at me, and he said something that he didn't laugh at the help. He said something like, "What the heck are you doing?" And I just said, "Okay, fine, whatever. Just do it. If this is it, you're going to kick me out of the house. I'm going to kick me out of the family. Fine, I'm ready. I'm done with this kitchen, cleaning the kitchen." He said, "Grab that stuff and throw it in the bucket, And so he, got me, come down off that ladder. And that's when he told me. He said, "Greg, I'm always going to love you. You're always going to be my son. I'm never going to kick you out of this family." I couldn't believe it. I thought that I had done it. I thought I had pushed over that line. And we both cried, and I'll never forget that day, because I did some other things later in life that I always knew that I could go home to my mom and dad. My mom would give me a nice warm meal, make some lasagna for me or something. And yeah, my dad, but he told me, he said, "I'm really I'm mad at you. There's no question about it. I'm very, very angry with you." He goes, "But you're still always going to be my son." And, I never forgot that. And that's what I realized, is that if we can't trust and we can't feel loved, like there's at least one person that loves us no matter what, we're always going to be limited to what we can do in life. Just there's not that freedom, take risks and do those sorts of things. And so there's always that missing link. And so that's what we try. That's what we do as the foster warrior community, is that really these foster warrior alumni, once they complete a 24-hour challenge, they can call us for the rest of their life.
Tell me about that now, because I want our listeners to hear about your very special and powerful organization. So tell me about what it is and how you dreamt it up.
Okay, well, what it is that we do 24-hour challenges, and it's a community of Navy SEALs mentoring foster youth that age out of the system. So it's 18 and older, former foster youth are 18 and older. And there's a number of SEAL team guys that kind of lead the way and have developed a program where it's a series of evolutions. Evolutions being, you're hiking, and then there's some training. And what people don't realize is that Navy SEALs, it's not all just logs and crawling through sand and all that sort of thing. And there's classroom, and I didn't know that either. But that's these Chuck and Leif and Rob and John, and these guys, this is what they went through. And it's funny, they illuminate the greatest benefits of what they learned in the SEAL teams that's relatable to these foster youth. So what we do is this 24-hour challenge. It's a 24-hour period of time. We don't sleep. There are dorms down here for Friday night, but not for Saturday night. And it's funny, people go, "So where do we sleep?" We don't sleep. That's the whole point.
Right. There's no sleep. You're just up, just doing it.
Right. Well, because the thing is that it's funny. They say, the last 6 hours is where the magic happens. There's a level of exhaustion, but it's not just exhaustion. This is a completion exercise. It's not a beat down or any kind of a extreme pressure or any of those sorts of things. So we start as a team, we end as a team. It's all about team. And the three things that we want the Foster Warrior Fellows to come away with and become alumni is the first thing is to honor your word, the importance of honoring your word. If you just keep your word, you got a shot. The second thing is to have intentional goals. So we're near Hollywood and, out in LA, and everybody wants to be not everybody, but enough people want to be a movie star, right? And so Leonardo DiCaprio had 350 times he was told that he stunk and he was no good before he actually had his first part, right? So you got to be willing to, be told that 350 times. And that's, intentionality is really understanding the truth about what my goals are. And so the third one would be, why can you put 6 Navy SEALs anywhere in the world to perform a mission, even if they were told 15 minutes prior they're getting ready to go home on leave, and all of a sudden they got to do this important mission? They're going to perform at an optimal level. And why is that? People say grit and training. Well, a lot of people are trained, and a lot of people are strong teams. And what they are is, it's funny, after working with this Rich Davini, who has a book called The Attributes, he also just released this book. I asked him, I said, so Rich, what is it about SEALs that's different? And he said, they're masters of uncertainty. It's like, who doesn't want to be a master of uncertainty? We all have things that we have lightning bolts that hit. If life was, if it was a straight line, it'd be easy, but nobody would grow, right? But we get these lightning bolts. And foster youth and veterans have a series of experiences, and most people have trauma that they've experienced in their life. And then what do? Right? We cash it in. Some people choose to make a permanent decision over a short-term problem. And that's what we want to move away from, right? So so the SEAL team docs, we have one of our team doctors revamped the mental health program for the Navy SEALs, 2012, personally named. So Dr. Paul Sargent, he's a psychiatrist, and we have a couple of operational psychologists, Matt and Pat, and they're phenomenal. So they were essentially psychologists or psychiatrists, or psychologists that were embedded with special operators. So they got the latest and greatest of technology. I'm kind of the guinea pig. I get to do some of these things and different devices, and it's, sound, light, vibration. It's meditation, and there's one that just vibrates and has sound.
Okay, hang on one second. So your program is not just a bunch of people in the woods running around doing hard things. You're saying that there's a lot of therapeutic exercises as well.
Yes. It's what's interesting. People think that SEALs are just a bunch of tough guys, punch through the ice when you're thirsty, that kind of thing. Actually, yes, they're tough guys, but they're smart tough, because they embrace everything that a human being, it's made available. Anything that a human being can embrace to be an optimal performer, they have access to. So mental, spiritual, physical. So yes, they talk about God, they talk about a higher power, they talk about being mentally tough, but then also physically tough. But it's the full package, right? And then what happens when this machine? So some people say that SEALs are human specimens with a PhD. So they're brilliant, smart guys, but also extremely capable physically, and it's fascinating. So part of the mental health portion is how to get access to your vagus nerve and where thought originates. Kind of teaching, and some people say, well, how many senses are there? Well, we learned there are 5, right? There are actually 8. I mean, it's fascinating. So think about, people say women's intuition, right? That's a sense. Intuition, right? And part of the teamwork and what happens in the last 6 hours and things is that can you feel that person next to you? Can you feel your buddy? Can you feel your mentor, your mentee, what have you? And you can actually feel what they're feeling if you pay attention.
Right. So you feel that these kids trust you after 18 hours, that there's something that happens in that last 6 hours. You said that's pretty special. But what happens to them in the first 18? Like, how do you get ready for that last 6?
Well, first of all, they see that we trust each other.
Yeah, I bet that's huge, right? They see you with your colleagues, and they're They're probably moved by that, I would imagine.
Right. And they hear, from the SEAL team guys, the importance of trust. Say there are two new SEALs that could potentially, they only need one, but they had to pick one of the two. And the one is the best at every activity and the strongest and the fastest and the bright, but they don't trust him. They'd rather have the guy that's a B player physically, but very trustworthy. So, learning that, and everybody wants that, right? The simple thing is that everybody wants community, whether they say it or not. I'll tell you, Lauren, when she's on our website, she's one of, she's incredible, Lauren Session, and she's what my mom would call a toughie. Hey, so how you how are you doing? I'm fine. Or anything bothering you? No, I'm good. But there's an obvious something's going on, and something's bothering. And my mom was very perceptive that way. But anyhow, so kind of got it from her, I think. But there's this second hike. We were hiking up this steep incline. It was the first 24-hour challenge, and I could just see that Lauren, she wasn't in complete distress, but she was just, something was in her head. And I said, hey, Lauren, check this out. And I don't remember what, it was something to get her attention off. And then we just kind of hung out and chatted off to the side for a few minutes. And then we kind of went on our way. Anyway, at the end, she really, that first 24-hour challenge, she really didn't open up that much. She talked about surface level things and what food she liked, but that was about it. And then at the very end, Tracy Park, who's the LA councilwoman that sponsors us, she asked her, so Lauren, what did you get from it? And Lauren broke down and said, I learned I got to ask for help. And we all lost it. And that's the biggest thing, is that, we all need help. Nobody gets to be the best and perform at an optimal level in life without help from somebody, without a team, without somebody in your corner, or a number of people in your corner.
I was going to ask you, how long have you been doing this, and how has it changed you? It's a kind of a huge thing. You have a big commitment to it. I'm just wondering how it's affecting you.
Well, it's funny. I've been doing it a few years now, but Chuck and I were planning even for 3 years, 4 years before we actually did it. But I can tell you, it's been some of the most fun I've had in my life, besides raising my family, having my kids. And I just love coaching lacrosse with Austin and, my Jonathan and Devin. And, I spent Christmas with my daughter. She bought a house in September and got married in October. And, I heard somewhere that everybody should have an and one. People think and one from basketball, Michael Jordan or whatever. But everybody should have whatever their responsibility is, then help one other person, at least one other person, just to experience what that feels like. But once you help somebody and you see the light bulbs go off, this has been it's been a life-changing experience, in the sense that you see people's lives change, the trajectory of people's lives change materially in just one 24-hour period of time. And they come back, when I meet with the Foster Warriors, I'm meeting with somebody at Saturday at 9:00, one of the Foster Warrior alumni. He's Stevie. He's done a couple of 24-hour challenges. And he sets an appointment, we put on the calendar. I'm not going to call him to say, hey, Stevie, remember we're meeting at 9:00. Are you sure? I'm just going to go. And if he doesn't go, well, then he's telling me that he doesn't want my help anymore, right? Everybody knows that. Everybody knows you just keep your word. You make an appointment, you keep your word. And if you can't make it, let somebody know in advance, obviously, before they get on the road. But, things happen, right? But youth these days, they overbook themselves, and then they don't get back, or they, I forgot, especially LA. Even grown-ups, you could plan a thing, and then all of a sudden, oh no, something better came up. And a grown-up tells you that, and he's like, are you kidding me? I don't know if it's just LA, but I know it's a lot. It's not on the East Coast, I can tell you that. But so how's it changed my life? As a little kid, my great-grandfather started a big company in Boston. And so ever since I was a little kid, somebody, my relatives like, you're just like Papa Guy, you're going to do something big. Anyway, so I built this business in New York. It was a big business, and worked out okay, and everything worked out. So I achieved my childhood dream, right? And a couple hundred lawyers working for me, and sold the company after about 5 years. and everything was great. Like that should be like your supreme achievement, right? At least I thought that's what it was. And I was, of course, it's something to be proud of, and it was a lot, took a lot to do, but it's nothing like Foster Warriors. There's nothing like what you see from these young people, and to see the light bulb. I'll tell you. So I'll give you another example. I could just tell you examples would be the best thing. So last 24-hour challenge was Cindy. Well, there's a number of things that happened, but this one particular, person, some of the Foster Warrior fellows didn't have shoes, didn't have hiking boots. And so I put out a thing. I'm thinking 3 or 4 don't. It turned out like 14 or 15 didn't have hiking boots. So I said, all right, we're all going to meet at REI. We're going to buy some hiking boots. And I asked Cindy, everybody got a ride. Cindy lives out in Egypt. She lives way out near I say Palm Springs, but I mean, she's way out from LA. She's like an hour and a half drive each way from me. Anyway, so I drove out to get her. I bring her down to the shoe store. We get the shoes. And as I'm driving her home, this is the thing. Bright girl, extremely bright. She says, I'm going to be a doctor. I said, oh, okay. Where are you going to school? She's going to community college somewhere. And I said, well, how long have you been going to community college? And it was, I don't know, maybe it was a couple of years. And I was like, warning sign that, I kind of know this much about a lot of things, Anyway, my gut told me she's not going to medical school. Somebody's been blowing smoke, or she hasn't been advised properly, but something tells me this is off. Now, she had been paraded across the stage in Japan. She'd been up at the UN as a foster youth that's going to be a doctor by people that are in the medical arena, right? But nobody bothered to find out what she's really doing. So I paired her with a mentor who's a surgeon in Beverly Hills. And so I said to John, John, when you go on the hike, could you just find out about her work, her education, to see if she's really poised to go to medical school? Well, after a few hours, because she's quiet, foster youth, it's not like they readily tell you everything that's going on in their lives. You kind of just wait until they get comfortable. Well, at some point she got comfortable. You asked 18 hours. I don't know what hour it was that she was comfortable with John and they were talking. But I just know that they were really having a great time. The way they were talking is like they'd known each other for years, right? And because I think that Cindy was seeing that John really wants to help her. Now, John's married with a couple of twin boys and a daughter. He's got his own family, but this is his, plus one, right? Or and one. And so anyway, fast forward to just a couple weeks ago, John told me, he goes, Greg, I got some great news. Well, first of all, we found out that she was not on track, that she's got some problems with her, she will not make it into medical school, right? And so fast forward to just a couple weeks ago, he said she's at UCLA medical school on a medical school track, and she's interning in his surgery center. How about them apples?
So how did that happen? It was because of the connection she made with him, and then
yes,
he became her mentor and set her straight?
That's right. So he mentored her. He discovered, he took a genuine interest in her, right? It's a genuine interest. It's not just a, hey, how you doing? High five, and let's, kind of hang out for a couple hours. You really get to know somebody. There are things these evolutions are designed for the mentor and mentee to get to know each other and to provide, bonding type connective tissue.
So in this case, or with, I hope, a lot of the kids, it's not just 24 hours and that's it, because that 24 hours spurs, ideally, some kind of lasting relationship with who you pair them up with, or somebody else in the group.
Oh, yeah, no. So we do sailing expedition, equine therapy. We do all types of events, and I just invite them all. We don't force it. It's attraction, not promotion. So they don't have to pay for anything, but they know that if they come, they're going to have an amazing time. And it's not just equine therapy. So I tell you, April Davis, who is the director and producer for Black Beauty, she gave a Hollywood-style briefing of how she raised the money for Black Beauty, how she was told 200 times that they didn't have the money, and how she raised the money from a guy that she didn't even expect to get the money from, and how wonderful it was to her anyway. So she did Black Beauty, and then she discovered how Mustangs are mistreated by the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management. They're killing them and with hunting them with helicopters. and there's all kinds of trauma. So anyway, so we went to this Mustang ranch that had rescued a number of these horses. Well, the horses have been through the trauma, which is like the foster youth, which are like the veterans that were also there as well. So there's this healing that, we all go through this, like there's this bonding that takes place. It's fascinating. And so anyway, so they got to see April Davis, talk about this whole process. But then also, as it turned out, Apple is paying for her to do a documentary on wolves, and she's out doing that. So when she releases that, the Foster Warrior alumni are going to be able to hang out and have this special back channel to, special invitations to these different things. So there was another. Oh, and so at the end of the Mustang Ranch, the leader, she said, and she's a PR woman, and one of the Foster Warrior alumni said she wants to be in PR. So she's going to mentor her. She's a PR lady for Simon Cowell. So we're talking it's not just somebody that went to USC and she's been out one or 2 years. This is a real PR woman, right? And her father just was very sick on it, and so I don't know. She's in England right now, but she will be be coming back soon and working with April, and so it's just these connections happen. It's like I want to make sure that no matter what it is, I was a corporate fixer, so I just told companies, I don't care what your problem is, call me, I'll fix it. And was always able to do that and get the resource. So I want to do the same thing with foster youth. So that's what there hasn't been a career that any of the Foster Warrior alumni have said, I want to do this, and then they haven't been able to find something. So the most recent, so HVS Conservatory, that's a place where people in LA pay $20,000-$30,000 to get their singer-songwriter child. You're familiar with that? So they go and they're trained. They get voice lessons by Grammy Platinum singers, right? These are the best of the best, and they really want these students to win. So they gave a scholarship for a veteran and a foster warrior, right? Foster youth. And so in 10 weeks, they're going to be career ready, from being voice coaching to piano playing to songwriting, to have everything they need to become a singer-songwriter. And then they're going to be able to perform at different events. So that's just, that's a one-off thing, right? And so we have other uncovering hidden Van Gogh. Yeah, there's a number of things that we do.
So are you surprised at all that you're doing this just based on your own history and your professional career? Or are you ever surprised that you're involved in this way?
Well, you want to know how? My mom, what they said about my mom, because she had 5 kids and they were all like, we're all under, whatever, 9. And my mom always one of my cousins said, my mother was either crazy or she was truly happy, and, so I don't know if I'm crazy or I just enjoy it. But when it was first coming around, Chuck and I had talked about it for so many years. We had investors, we had billionaires say, look, we want to do a Survivor meets Make-A-Wish Foundation. We want to make a movie, $2 million, and all these things. Everybody was talking about all this stuff for years and dragging. Anyway, so this one particular September, I just it's actually like June or whatever. I said, Chuck, we're going to do it. Let's do it. And so I booked the location. I had a whole team, and the logistics guy bailed out 45 days before the event, because everybody's volunteers, right? But it doesn't make an excuse, but it did happen. And the guy that was supposed to get all the restaurants to donate food, he bailed 48 hours before the event. And he told me, yep, got it covered. I know all the restaurateurs in the Pacific Palisades. I'll get it all squared away. And so then I lost the company I worked for, went out of business. So I was like, okay. And funny, my girlfriend at the time, she's like, well, you just can't do it. You have to focus on getting a job. And I said, yeah, well, I'm going to get a job. But anyway, so I got one of those emails from a loan shark thing. It's like, you have good credit. You qualify for a $25,000 loan. So I filled out the paperwork. I said, the heck with it. I'm going to do it. And that's what we needed, was $25,000. People talk about like God putting things in your path, that you need. And that's what we needed. And so I just did it. Right. And that's how we got started. And so, that's
that's how you financed the first one? Wow.
And I can't do that anymore. But we need, that's why we need to raise money. So then I got the financing. Maybe it was like a week or two before, and then the guy quit, the logistics guy. So I had to figure out deconstruct what he had a nervous breakdown or something. And then the guy with the restaurants, I called my son. I said, Austin, I said, buddy, I said, he helps out with logistics during the event. And I said, the guy just called me and told me, we don't have any food. So then I called him back 3 or 4 hours later, and I said, look, I lined up all the food. I went to all the places, and everybody, we got food for the whole event. And it was amazing food, And so, so it all worked out, Oh, but the thing was, I forgot to tell you.
Wow.
I forgot to tell you this, because I know everything that we teach, I've experienced. Just because you're tough, just because, whatever. I know what it's like to want to commit suicide. I do know that, how that feels. Okay, I've been there. And I do know that feeling. Now, how that didn't happen is a miracle. But on this particular day, I know what it feels like to want to quit. So I called Chuck, and Chuck's like, okay, Greg, let's go. He's the SEAL team guy. And he's one of those guys when somebody when you say, hey, who is it? Chuck Rubac. And they go, oh, he's the real deal. Chuck Rubac's the real deal. Anyway, he's a good friend of mine, and we started a cybersecurity company together. We've done a bunch of things together. But anyway, so when he was all in, I didn't tell him I felt like quitting, but because we didn't feel like quitting on the same day, he kept me in the game. And it was really this fleeting moment, But I was pretty weak at that moment. And, so really that's the importance of the team. It's really a neat thing, and the Foster Warrior alumni, as they get to know these SEALs, they realize they're different human beings, and they all want to be like them. They all want to have the same resilience and grit.
Right, and they can always come back, right? They always have a connection with you once they've done it.
Oh yeah, no, several of the Foster Warriors have. Actually, Maria's done 3. Stevie's done 2. A number of them have done at least 2. Yeah, and so actually Maria recruited 3 of her siblings.
Hey, so I want to ask you about your mom, because you lost your mom when you were pretty young, right?
Yeah, she was buried on my 25th birthday, and she was buried on my 25th birthday, and she had breast cancer, and back then I don't believe there were cell phones. And so she called me, and she said that she has breast cancer. My father was overseas working, for the company, and it was a far way away, and I knew my mom was scared. And then somehow she called me. Somehow we hung up, and then I realized, where is she? And so then I couldn't get her. I called at home, and she wasn't there. So then I just ran around town to all the doctor's offices that I remember going with her as a kid, the hospitals and stuff, and finally caught her at home, and she had reconstruction and everything. But this is my mom, she was at Georgetown University, and they talked about reconstruction. She goes, oh no, I don't need to pay for breasts. I want my money to go to my kids' college education and stuff. And so they loved her so much that they did it for free. Yeah, she was a special lady.
Wow.
But anyway, so when she died, at that point, I just decided I knew there wasn't a God. Like I had felt like I had proof there was no God, because one of my brother's friends was just waiting for his parents to die so that he could inherit, the inheritance and stuff. And I was just thinking, why don't they take him? Why didn't God take him instead of my mom? He eventually died because he did so many drugs. I was waiting for his parents to die. But anyway, so I never gave God credit. And then I reached my limit, I don't know, about 9 years ago. And my mentor, he was just like, Greg, you got to get a relationship with God. And then I had a text message, you want to save 15 minutes and go up this route up to Bel Air. Anyway, I ended up going by Bel Air Presbyterian. I'm Catholic, but it's Bel Air Press, Anyway, it was just this big building. I thought it was a biotech firm. This beautiful building on the top of the mountain, the best view in Los Angeles.
I've seen it. It's gorgeous. It's with all those windows, and yeah, it's huge.
Oh,
Huge and
yeah.
beautiful.
But so there's a steeple, but I guess it's kind of tiny and hidden in the back. You don't even know it's a church. So anyway, so I just went on to work. I was working at a law firm downtown. Anyway, so the next day, the only 2 times this ever happened in my life, and I did this commute, hour and a half each way every day for years. Anyway, said, you want to save 15 minutes again? Sure. So I went up there. That time I stopped and I researched, what is the name of this place? And so then anyway, I ended up looking online. And I saw these chances to volunteer, and my son Austin was out living with me, and he wanted to get back into the community. So that's how we got involved. I ended up, I emailed the pastor, and he said, hey, this lady's, does an amazing service at 11 o'clock. Anyway, so I went to that service, and it changed my life. And I'll just never forget, it was actually, the service was about, I don't know what it's called. It's a parable where the deepest, darkest waters of anybody, we're down to the worst part of your life. And even then, Jesus wants you to reach for his help. So that's where I was. I was in that deep, dark place. It was in a really bad spot. And it just happened that's what was going on that day. So this pastor, she kept saying, just let go of the log. You're holding on to a log in the ocean, right? So I'm visualizing this log. I'm holding on to this log and she's like, just let go of the log and trust Jesus, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, I'll let go of the log, but I'm going to hold on with my feet, and I'm not stupid, So anyways, so I let go with my hands, and then she's like, just let go. Like she's talking to the whole congregation, and she's really into it. And she was an agent for childhood actors. So all these pastors are like, they could run any business, really smart people. Anyway, so she's like a super saleswoman. And anyway, she's like, just let go. And she goes, now let go with your feet. And I lost it, And I was just like, man, okay. There may be something to this, So I was thinking to myself as the end of the service, and I said, if it happens again next week, I'll come back. So one time's not enough. I got to experience it. So anyway, so on the way out, everybody stops and thanks the priest, for their service or whatever, says hello. And I thought, I'm going to stop and I'm going to stand in line. Ordinarily, I'll just rush off, and I'm just going to stay in line and tell her what happened, tell her about my experience. So anyway, I shared what I just told you in a briefer form. And she goes, no, I don't say that about the feet. She goes, that's not part of my sermon. And I looked at her and I said, you said it. And we both lost it at that moment. She goes, I want to get to know you. You come talk to me afterwards. And I said, yeah. So we met, and I developed a relationship with her. And, professional, or however you do with a pastor, And yeah, she was amazing. And so anytime she called and needed a volunteer for whatever, I was always in. I'd stop whatever I was doing. She changed my life. So anyway, so that's so I just run towards my relationship with God today.
Yeah, as I'm looking at you, I'm sure you realize this, but there is a cross right behind your head.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the room you're in, there's a cross right behind your head. As if it's just kind of watching over you. Yeah. Actually.
No, I feel very fortunate. I feel like God lets me get tested. I behave. I engage. I don't do it as much as I did before. Engaging in self-defeating behavior and doing things my gut's telling me I probably shouldn't do, or I've been advised not to do, and just push the envelope anyway and get some different results. But I feel I'm very fortunate.
Well, thank you for this. I want to ask you one other thing that I ask all my guests, and if you can dig deep for this, I'm sure you can. What is the one thing that no one would ever be able to guess about you unless you told them?
Well, it's a thing that people probably want, but I can share that I'm not afraid of anything. And I might have been as a kid, but my father really didn't appear to be afraid of anything, so I wasn't going to be afraid of anything. And like I say, I grew up in a neighborhood where I was bullied a lot. So if you showed fear, then they would, it would get worse. So, so one time I went to a therapist and he said, that's not normal. He goes, what are you afraid of? I said, I'm not afraid of anything. And now, of course, if somebody comes in with a gun or, somebody's going to threaten to hit me with a baseball bat, it's not like I feel nothing, right? But by and large, I mean, I'm in the middle of some very difficult situations, and I just focus on, I kind of run into the fire, or I go into the action, whatever's going on. I've had a gun pulled on me in a gas station. I've had different things that happen where I should be dead, but for some reason I'm able to get in the zone and everything slows down. And when I handled federal investigations and some of the largest, the World Trade Center and things like that, litigations where, you have lawyers just losing their cool, and for some reason I'm able to stay calm. And I don't know where that comes from, but it's as animated as I get and as aggressive as I like to be. There, when it comes to that, I'm just everything slows down, and I'm able to think. And we've been able to dissect that as the SEAL team guys teach the Foster Warrior alumni. I think because I babysat for former SEALs and operatives and things like that as a kid on base and everything. And so maybe I learned it from them. I don't know, but I guess that would be one thing. The other thing is that I meditate.
Right. So you meditate every day?
Every day.
That's part of your process?
I meditate every day, transcendental meditation. And they say this isn't the way to explain it, but this is the way it is for me, is that my brain separates from my body. And when that happens, when that transcendental state, when the body just performs everything the way it's supposed to, and the brain is you go through an Etch-a-Sketch. Because my brain's pretty active. I got a lot going on. And, I'm sometimes thinking about, I got to really focus on you and what you're saying to stay on one thought.
Listen, I think your organization is really great, and I think it's so important for people to hear that you just launched this because you knew you could help kids who needed something that they didn't get at home, maybe because they have no home or their home was lost or their family failed them, and there are people out there like you trying to give them a helping hand. That's pretty great.
Well, I think the biggest thing, I always say the biggest thing, the key to this, but one of the, I think something that's very important that we all agree on is that we don't just give somebody an email. We jump on the phone. Okay, Jane, are you ready to talk to Cindy? Cindy, Jane says she can do this. And, we bring the Foster Warrior alumni, and we engage in the conversation to make sure it's all got traction, then follow up, and to see, are you guys talking? Are you communicating? Because we also need to learn to manage up. I was really bad at managing up for years. And so that's why I know that you have to learn to manage up, because the boss isn't always going to come pull you up. And, so we teach that. And we're going to be in it with them. We're in the mud with them. No matter what's happening, they can certainly call us. And we also, different people have different skill sets. Paul and Matt and Pat are the best psychologists and psychiatrists on the planet. A conversation with Matt, one conversation with Matt could turn an entire child's, life around. That's what he does. He's got a background that just blow your mind of all the different experiences he's had. He's got this big dog, Genevieve, this big Great Dane. And, it's just, there's something about the experience that these, we're able to give these guys. And yeah, it's quite moving. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add for people to hear who might be listening about the work that you're doing?
Well, we need some more mentors. It looks like
there we go.
Yeah, in May.
Need some more mentors.
That's right. Now we all veterans from all armed forces, not just SEALs. It just happens to be a SEAL program, and then but also everybody that mentors is somebody that's accomplished some things and really has a good heart. We know people look at the flyer, be mentored by Navy SEALs, walk 24 hours, and all that. It's like once they see that, they go, I want to do that. That's who's involved. Yeah, so we love it.
Good on you, man.
Foster warriors.
I know the people who hear this, they're going to hear it. They're going to say, "I want to do that. I want to do that."
Yeah. Well, it's funny if somebody goes, "Oh, I could never do that." It's like, I believe you, and they're like, and then they go, I say, but if you told me you could do it, I'd believe you too. And then all of a sudden they stop and think. They go, so it really is all in my head, isn't it? We have 8 of our women that have completed the 24-hour challenge, never walked further than around their block in their neighborhood in their life.
Wow. Listen, good.
Isn't that great?
It's great.
Yeah. One of the girls, she even said, she goes, I haven't even walked my dog around my block. She goes, I only walk into the street and back in the house. Yeah, I mean, these guys are awesome.
Well, good on you, Greg. Good on you.
Yeah.
And Foster Warriors. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jane.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg, for taking the time to come and talk with us. I think your Foster Warriors program is pretty exceptional, and I, for one, would love to do the 24-hour challenge. I'm not kidding. Because like you, I think creating that trust and that sense of community is huge. So, thank you very much, and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for listening. Please keep your ears open for our next episode. Take care and be well. If you or someone you know is harming themselves or thinking about harming themselves, go to crisistextline.org. If you see something, say something. If you suspect a child's health or safety is jeopardized in any way by parents or anyone else, contact the Child Protective Services Agency in your county. 24-hour hotlines are staffed by trained social workers who will help you through the process, and you can do so anonymously. In California, you can call the Child Protection Hotline at 800-540-4000. So if you see something, say something. You might be saving a child's life. If you want to know more about becoming a CASA anywhere in the country, go to nationalcasagal.org. And in LA, casala.org. And if you want to know more about becoming a foster parent, check out the National Foster Parent Association at nfponline.org. There's also faithfosterfamilies.org and adoptuskids.org. There's tons of other information online as well, so you can just hunt around. We also want to thank the supremely talented Christina Apostolopoulos for her beautiful original music. You can find her music on Spotify or Instagram at Christina Aposta. And also thank you to Yukon Har for his engineering. Thanks for listening, and if you like what you hear and you find it as valuable as we do, please rate us and hit subscribe. You can also make a donation at bonusbabies.org. See you next time.